Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of Mycobacterium leprae,
Okay.
the bacterium behind leprosy,
Yeah.
also known as Hansen's disease.
Yes.
As medical microbiologists, we all know the basics. We're going to try to go beyond the textbook here and
Sure.
uncover some really intriguing aspects of this ancient disease.
Sounds good.
We've got some great sources lined up from Microbiology, the
Okay.
CDC,
Awesome.
and even take a look at the work being done by Microbe Canvas.
Oh, very cool.
So get ready to explore not just the science, but also the social impact of leprosy and why that matters.
Yeah.
Especially
It's a disease that's often misunderstood.
Right.
Most people immediately think of the skin lesions,
Yeah.
but the truth is, it's primarily a neurological disease.
Right. It seems like M. leprae has a particular affinity for the peripheral nerves.
That's exactly where this bacterium sets up shop.
Mm-hmm.
It can lead to numbness, muscle weakness,
Oh, wow.
and in severe cases, even loss of extremities.
Wow. That's a stark reminder of why early diagnosis is so crucial.
For sure.
I mean, imagine losing a finger or toe simply because you couldn't feel an injury.
It's a harsh reality for many people living with leprosy, especially in areas with limited access to healthcare.
Yeah.
It also highlights the importance of raising awareness about the disease and its symptoms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, let's tackle a big misconception surrounding leprosy.
Okay.
It's contagiousness.
Right.
Most people think it's incredibly easy to catch,
Yeah.
but that's not really the case, is it?
Not at all.
Okay.
Leprosy is actually quite difficult to transmit.
Okay.
It requires prolonged, close contact,
Yeah.
mainly through respiratory droplets.
Okay.
And here's a surprising fact.
Okay.
The CDC states that 95% of people who are exposed to M. leprae never even develop the disease.
That's a really high percentage.
It is.
So what makes that remaining 5% susceptible?
Right.
Why do some people get sick while others don't?
That's a question that researchers are still exploring. We know that genetics play a role,
Okay.
as some individuals have a genetic predisposition that makes them more susceptible.
Uh-huh.
Overall health and immune system strength also play a significant role.
It sounds like there's still a lot to uncover about the interplay between M. leprae and the human immune system.
Definitely.
Now, this next part is particularly intriguing, especially from a microbiological perspective.
Okay.
Did you know that armadillos in the southern United States can carry leprosy?
It's a rather unique situation.
It is.
Scientists believe that armadillos likely contracted leprosy from humans centuries ago,
Oh, wow.
possibly through early European settlers.
Interesting.
Now they serve as a reservoir for the bacteria.
It's a curious case of reverse zoonosis, where a disease jumps from humans to animals and then potentially back again.
Right.
I wonder what kind of research opportunities this presents for medical microbiologists.
There are certainly a lot of intriguing questions to explore.
Yeah.
How has M. leprae adapted to survive in armadillos? Could this adaptation potentially influence its pathogenicity in humans?
Yeah.
And what are the implications for leprosy control and prevention?
It seems like this armadillo connection opens up a whole new dimension to leprosy research.
It does.
Okay, let's move on to diagnosis and treatment.
Right.
I know you're a big proponent of utilizing molecular techniques in diagnosing leprosy.
Molecular techniques like PCR are becoming increasingly crucial,
Yeah.
especially in areas where leprosy is less common.
Uh-huh.
They offer greater sensitivity and specificity compared to traditional clinical observations,
Right.
allowing for earlier and more accurate diagnosis.
And thankfully, once diagnosed, leprosy is treatable, right?
It is.
What's the current standard of care?
Multi-drug therapy is the gold standard,
Okay.
and it's proven to be highly effective in curing leprosy.
Go.
This typically involves a combination of antibiotics, such as dapsone, rifampicin, and clofazimine.
Okay.
Each drug targets M. leprae in a slightly different way, helping to prevent the development of drug resistance.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable that the World Health Organization provides these medications free of charge.
It is.
That's a massive step toward global leprosy control.
Absolutely.
But what about prevention? Are there any vaccines available?
Currently, there isn't a vaccine specifically designed for leprosy.
Sure.
However, the BCG vaccine,
right.
primarily used for tuberculosis,
Yeah.
does offer some cross-protection against leprosy,
Yeah.
especially in high-risk populations.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So while it's not a perfect solution, it does offer some level of protection.
It does.
Are there any promising developments on the horizon in terms of leprosy-specific vaccines?
There's definitely exciting research happening.
Okay.
The Lepvax vaccine, currently in clinical trials,
Yeah.
shows a lot of promise.
Great.
If it proves safe and effective,
Yeah.
it could revolutionize our approach to leprosy control.
That would be a game changer.
It would.
But even with effective treatments and the potential for new vaccines,
Right.
we can't ignore the significant social stigma associated with leprosy.
Absolutely. The social stigma surrounding leprosy is a major issue.
Yeah.
It can be just as debilitating as the physical symptoms themselves,
Wow.
leading to isolation, discrimination, and delayed diagnosis.
It's almost like people are carrying an invisible burden along with the disease itself.
It is.
I imagine this can have a devastating impact on mental health,
Yes.
employment, and overall well-being.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Individuals with leprosy often face rejection from their communities and families,
That's horrible.
leading to feelings of shame and worthlessness.
So it's crucial for us as medical professionals to go beyond just treating the physical symptoms.
Absolutely.
We need to address the social and psychological aspects as well.
I completely agree.
Okay.
We need to advocate for our patients,
Yeah.
educate the public,
Right.
and challenge these harmful misconceptions that perpetuate the stigma surrounding leprosy.
And how do you see organizations like Microbe Canvas contributing to this effort?
Microbe Canvas uses art to start conversations and raise awareness about leprosy,
Interesting.
highlighting the beauty and complexity of M. leprae, while also showcasing the human stories behind the disease.
It's a really creative way to bridge the gap between science and society.
It is.
Now let's dive a little deeper into the intricacies of M. leprae itself.
Okay.
What are some of the unique characteristics that make this bacterium so challenging to study and treat?
One of the biggest challenges is that M. leprae can't be cultured in a traditional laboratory setting. It's an obligate intracellular parasite,
Okay.
meaning it can only survive and replicate inside specific host cells.
Right.
This makes it incredibly difficult to study its growth,
Yeah.
metabolism, and drug susceptibility.
Yeah.
That's right. It really limits our ability to study it in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
Researchers have had to rely on animal models like armadillos and mice to study the bacterium.
So what does that mean for developing new treatments?
It makes things much more complex.
Okay.
We can't simply screen thousands of compounds against M. leprae in a petri dish.
Right.
We need to use more complex and time-consuming animal models,
Yeah.
which can slow down the process significantly.
I see it definitely presents some unique challenges.
It does.
Speaking of challenges, let's talk about multi-drug therapy.
Okay.
It's highly effective, but are there concerns about drug resistance?
Drug resistance is a concern with any infectious disease.
Right.
And leprosy is no exception.
Sure.
While we haven't seen widespread resistance to the current multi-drug therapy,
Okay.
it's something we need to stay vigilant about.
What steps can be taken to mitigate that risk?
It all comes down to responsible antibiotic use, ensuring patients complete their full course of treatment,
Right.
and avoiding the unnecessary prescription of antibiotics.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Surveillance is also critical,
Yeah.
monitoring for any emerging resistant strains and adapting treatment strategies as needed.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
And this is where the work of medical microbiologists is so vital,
it is.
constantly monitoring
Yeah.
for those emerging threats.
Absolutely.
But getting back to the bacteria itself,
Okay.
what can you tell us about the different types of leprosy?
Sure.
I know it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
You're right. Leprosy presents itself on a spectrum,
Yeah.
and that spectrum is largely determined by the immune response of the infected individual.
Okay.
There are two main types, paucibacillary and multibacillary.
Those terms are used a lot, but I'd
Yeah.
love to hear a quick refresher on how they differ.
Of course.
Right.
Paucibacillary leprosy involves a milder form of the disease
Okay.
with fewer skin lesions and limited nerve damage.
Uh-huh.
Multibacillary, on the other hand,
Right.
is a more severe form
Yeah.
with more extensive lesions and more significant nerve involvement.
And how does the immune response factor into all this?
The immune response plays a critical role in determining which type of leprosy develops
Okay.
and how severe it becomes. A strong cellular immune response can effectively contain the bacteria,
Right.
leading to paucibacillary leprosy or even preventing the disease altogether.
Wow.
However, if the immune system is unable to control the bacteria,
Yeah.
it can lead to multibacillary leprosy with more widespread infection.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
So essentially, the body's own defense mechanisms can determine the course of the disease.
exactly. And that's why some individuals who are exposed to M. leprae never develop any symptoms.
Hmm.
Their immune system effectively neutralizes the bacteria before it can cause any damage.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
It highlights how crucial it is to understand the complexities of the immune response when studying infectious diseases.
absolutely. And that's where the field of immunology and microbiology intersect,
Right.
leading to a more comprehensive understanding of how the body defends itself against pathogens like M. leprae.
Now, with everything we've discussed about the challenges of studying M. leprae, it makes you wonder how scientists were even able to unravel the mysteries of its transmission in the first place.
It's a testament to the dedication and ingenuity of researchers.
Yeah.
They had to piece together the puzzle using limited tools and resources,
Wow.
relying on observations,
Uh-huh.
clinical studies,
Yeah.
and meticulous epidemiological investigations.
I imagine it was a long and arduous process.
It certainly was.
Oh,
But over time, they were able to establish the link between prolonged close contact and transmission,
right.
primarily through respiratory droplets.
Okay.
They also discovered the role of nasal secretions in spreading the bacteria.
So it wasn't a sudden breakthrough,
Right,
but rather a gradual accumulation of knowledge and understanding.
exactly. And that knowledge has been crucial in developing effective strategies for leprosy control and prevention.
Speaking of prevention, let's circle back to vaccines.
Okay.
I know we touched on the BCG vaccine earlier.
Yeah.
But are there any other preventative measures being explored?
Besides vaccination, early detection and treatment are crucial in preventing the spread of leprosy.
Okay.
Public health campaigns aimed at raising awareness about the symptoms and encouraging early diagnosis can make a significant difference.
Early intervention is key,
It is.
as with many infectious diseases.
Absolutely.
So in addition to vaccines,
Right.
we have public health initiatives and community education playing a vital role in the fight against leprosy.
Precisely. And that's why collaboration between healthcare professionals,
Yeah.
researchers,
Mm.
and public health officials is so critical.
Make sense?
We need a multi-pronged approach that tackles leprosy from all angles,
Okay.
including prevention treatment and addressing social stigma.
And that brings us back to the important work being done by organizations like Microbe Canvas.
Art can be a powerful tool for raising awareness,
Right.
changing perceptions,
Yeah.
and promoting empathy.
Uh-huh.
Microbe Canvas uses captivating visuals to tell the story of leprosy, not just as a disease, but as a human experience.
They help us see beyond the stigma and understand the real people behind the diagnosis.
They do.
I'm sure their work is sparking some important conversations about leprosy.
It is.
Ugh.
And that dialogue is essential for breaking down barriers and fostering a more inclusive and understanding society.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive on leprosy,
We have.
from its neurological effects and transmission myths
Right.
to the armadillo connection and the
Mm.
complexities of treatment and prevention.
Yeah.
There's certainly a lot to unpack.
It's a disease that often flies under the radar,
Right.
but it's one that deserves our attention and understanding,
Absolutely.
especially considering the ongoing challenges it presents.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
I want to touch on a topic that's particularly relevant to your work as a medical microbiologist.
All right.
The ever-evolving landscape of infectious diseases.
It's a field that's constantly changing,
It is.
with new threats emerging and old ones reemerging. We need to be adaptable,
Right.
vigilant,
Right.
and always ready to learn and adapt.
What do you see as some of the biggest challenges facing medical microbiologists today?
Antimicrobial resistance is a major concern, not just with leprosy,
Right.
but with a wide range of bacterial infections.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a growing number of bacteria becoming resistant to the antibiotics we've relied on for decades.
And that's a terrifying prospect, isn't it?
It is.
It almost feels like we're in an arms race with these microbes,
Yeah.
constantly trying to stay one step ahead.
It's a race we can't afford to lose.
Right.
We need to invest in research,
Okay.
develop new antibiotics,
Welcome.
and promote responsible antibiotic use to combat this growing threat.
So it's not just about treating individual patients,
Right.
but also about taking a broader public health approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to think globally and act locally,
Okay.
collaborating across disciplines and borders to tackle this challenge effectively.
And this brings us to another pressing issue, the impact of climate change on infectious diseases.
Climate change is a game changer for infectious diseases. As temperatures rise and weather patterns shift,
Right.
we're seeing changes in the geographic distribution of vectors, the emergence of new pathogens, and the reemergence of old ones in unexpected places.
So it's not just about the environment,
Right.
but also about the ripple effects it has on human health.
Exactly. We need to be prepared for these shifts.
Okay.
to understand how climate change is influencing disease patterns,
Yeah.
and to develop strategies to mitigate the risks.
It's about being proactive,
It is.
anticipating the challenges,
Right.
and adapting our approaches to ensure we're equipped to handle whatever comes our way.
Precisely. And that requires a willingness to embrace new technologies, new ways of thinking,
Yeah.
and a commitment to ongoing education and collaboration.
Speaking of new technologies,
Okay.
there have been some incredible advancements in the field of genomics. How is this shaping the way we study and understand leprosy?
Genomics has revolutionized the study of infectious diseases,
Yeah.
including leprosy. By sequencing the genome of M. leprae,
Right.
we've gained unprecedented insights into its biology,
Yeah.
its evolution, and
Yeah.
its mechanisms of pathogenicity.
So we're able to delve deeper into the bacteria itself,
Exactly.
uncovering its secrets at a molecular level.
We can identify the genes responsible for drug resistance,
Wow.
virulence factors,
Oh.
and even the bacteria's preference for infecting specific cell types.
Interesting.
This knowledge is invaluable in developing new diagnostics, treatments, and vaccines.
It's amazing to think how far we've come in our understanding of leprosy,
It is.
from the early observations to the molecular dissection of the bacteria itself.
It's a testament to the power of scientific inquiry and the relentless pursuit of knowledge.
Now, before we move on to our final part,
Okay.
I want to pose a question that's been on my mind. We know that leprosy is a slow-growing bacterium
Right.
with an incubation period that can last for years.
Right. It can take anywhere from 5 to 20 years for symptoms to appear after initial infection.
So my question is this.
Okay.
What are the implications of this long incubation period for diagnosis and treatment?
That's an important question.
It is.
The long incubation period makes early diagnosis challenging.
Right.
People can be infected for years without showing any symptoms,
Yeah.
making it difficult to identify and treat them before the disease progresses.
And during that time, they could unknowingly be transmitting the bacteria to others.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why it's so crucial to consider leprosy as a potential diagnosis, even in individuals who present with seemingly unrelated symptoms.
Yeah.
Especially if they've traveled to areas where leprosy is endemic.
It's about keeping leprosy on our radar,
It is.
even when it's not immediately obvious.
Right.
And this highlights the importance of a thorough medical history and a high index of suspicion.
Absolutely. Early diagnosis is key to preventing long-term complications and stopping the spread of the disease.
Well, we've covered a lot of fascinating aspects of leprosy in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From the intricacies of M. leprae itself
Right.
to the challenges of diagnosis, treatment,
Yeah.
and the social stigma surrounding the disease.
Absolutely.
It's clear that leprosy is a complex and multifaceted issue.
It's a reminder that even in the 21st century, ancient diseases like leprosy continue to challenge us both scientifically and socially.
And it underscores the importance of our roles as medical microbiologists.
It does.
Staying vigilant,
Yes.
pushing the boundaries of knowledge,
Uh-huh.
and advocating for those affected by this often overlooked disease.
I couldn't agree more. It's a mission that demands our continued dedication and expertise.
It really speaks to the importance of a holistic approach,
It does.
considering not just the biological aspects, but also the social and psychological impacts of disease.
Okay.
And speaking of social impact, let's revisit the work of Microbe Canvas.
Okay.
I find their approach to leprosy awareness quite fascinating.
They've really tapped into a unique way to engage the public.
Yeah.
Using art to depict M. leprae and the stories of those affected by leprosy is a powerful way to challenge perceptions and create a more empathetic understanding of the disease.
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Their work goes beyond the scientific facts and statistics,
Right.
reaching people on an emotional level
Yeah.
and striking conversations that might not have happened otherwise.
It's a great example of how art can be a bridge between science and society,
Yeah.
making complex topics more accessible and relatable.
And in the case of leprosy, that accessibility is so important for breaking down the stigma and fostering a more supportive environment for those living with the disease.
Absolutely. It's about humanizing the disease.
Right.
Reminding people that behind every diagnosis is a person deserving of compassion and understanding.
Well said. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a bit of a challenge,
Right.
a thought to ponder as they continue their work in the field of medical microbiology.
I'm all ears.
We've talked about the advances in leprosy treatment, the potential for new vaccines,
Right.
and the efforts to combat social stigma. But I'm curious,
Yeah.
what would it take to truly eliminate leprosy as a public health concern?
That's a question that requires a multifaceted answer.
Yeah.
It's not simply about finding a cure or a vaccine.
Okay.
It's about addressing the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to the spread of the disease.
So we need to look beyond the laboratory and consider the broader context in which leprosy exists.
Exactly. We need to address poverty,
Okay.
improve access to healthcare,
Right.
and promote education and awareness.
Uh,
It's about empowering communities to take ownership of their health and to break the cycle of transmission.
it's about a shift in perspective,
Yeah.
recognizing that leprosy is not just a medical issue,
Right.
but a social issue as well.
Right. And it's a shift that requires collaboration across disciplines,
Yeah.
bringing together medical professionals,
Right.
social workers, policymakers,
Yeah.
and community leaders to work towards a common goal.
A goal of creating a world where leprosy is no longer a source of suffering and stigma,
Yes.
but a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of collective action.
A world where every individual has the opportunity to live a healthy and fulfilling life,
Right.
free from the burden of this ancient disease.
That's a powerful vision.
It is.
And with the dedication of researchers, healthcare professionals, and advocates around the world,
Yeah.
I believe it's a vision we can make a reality. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of leprosy.